I've got a restoration project on the bench you're not going to want to miss. Let's get started. Well, good morning. Welcome back here to the shop. My name is Brett, and if this is your first time tuning into my channel, well, welcome. I've got a good one here for you, finally, to bring to the channel. One of the things we really have not touched on in the few years that I've been kind of doing this is restoration work, and I've been waiting for the right project to come in to, bring to the channel. And we're going to break this up into a series, and I think that's something I'm going to do, maybe focus on for this year, is we'll put some series out. I've got some really cool projects after this one too that I can't wait to show you all. But this one right now came in from New Hampshire. I believe I received it back in the fall. I've been going back and forth for, I don't know, a little over a year with this client. They were actually going to drive down from New Hampshire and bring it to me personally. And, it would have been fun to do that. But of course, life gets in the way. I think weather got in the way and it just didn't work out. So she ended up just boxing it up and sending it to me. And I think I got that back in the fall. So this one is going to be a lot of fun. Let me show you what it is. So it's a GL Lines from England, from what I understand. And once I talk to the client a little bit more, I'll get some more back history on it. But really the biggest part about this little horse is she's had it for about 30 years and she's been waiting patiently for somebody to come along and do the restoration work. And of course, she chose yours truly, and I'm just over the moon excited to get into this. This is the way I like to get a horse. I want something that is just, most people would think it's beyond repair, and that's what's so fun. If I had my choice of building new horses or doing restoration work, I think I would choose restoration, because there's just something about taking something that is old, dilapidated, but most people would look at it and think it's too far gone, and breathing new life into it and making it something that the family can then, cherish and pass on to their family, down the road. So this one is, like I said, just perfect. It is rough. In fact, we've been kind of going back and forth jokingly calling it the basket case. We may just continue with that throughout this series. It's just the basket case, and we're going to do our thing to it, and we're going to make this something beautiful once again. So let's just walk around it real quick. I'll show you why we're calling it the basket case, and then we're going to get into doing a few things. Now, this one right now is going to be kind of short as far as video, because there's only a couple of things right now that I want to get into, but we have a beautiful day out here. This is, we're into March right now, and we have a really beautiful day. It's supposed to hit maybe 60 degrees or better. I have another horse, I have a large that I'd like to go ahead and get set up outside. So I think the first part of this is going to be getting a couple of things done, and then we're going to go on outside and I'm going to rough this horse in for the rest of the day. And then tomorrow we'll get back in here and then we'll focus more on this horse. But let's go ahead, let's take a minute, we'll walk around it. So this is why we're calling this horse the basket case. When you look at it in the front, we're obviously missing some wood there, and you can see where the neck fastens to the top body block. It's starting to separate, so of course we're going to have to address that. In fact, the entire top part of this horse isn't even fastened down. I'll show you that here in a minute. Coming around to the back, we're missing wood again. And this is kind of fun here too. When I was setting this horse up here for to get this shot, this kept happening. So the back legs are not even attached. They're just sitting in place there, just so I can kind of, show you all what we're getting into. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, of course, the big question is, where do you start on something like this? One of the benefits of getting a horse in for restoration and getting it in fairly early, we'll say, is you can kind of live with it. And this horse has been, I've moved it around here in the shop a couple of times. And what I like being able to do is, while I'm working on other projects here in the shop, I can kind of take a look at that or glance over at it, and I'm working something over in my mind, like where do you start? And I think the best place for this horse, and what we're gonna focus on here today, is I want to stabilize the top part of this horse. Now again, it's been moved around here, and I've been being very, very careful when I move it around because it is, you know, in a delicate state, we'll say. The back end of this horse is just about ready to break off, and any, you know, hard motion with this, I could just snap it right off. So there's not much holding this on. And I think the best place to start with this is let's go ahead and get this stabilized so that we don't break that. And I've gone ahead, I've glued up some material here. I've got some basswood that we'll go ahead, get it out of the clamps. I'll take it over to the planer. We'll get it planed. I think what I'm going to do is run it down to about, I don't know, half an inch or so, 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to go ahead and then glue the top half of that. And then tomorrow we'll pick up from there, and, you know, we'll go and then we'll continue. I think what I'm going to do is run it over the joiner a couple of times and get it down to, you know, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, somewhere around there. Of course, it's going to add a little bit to the body, but not enough to notice. But that way it's stabilized, and then we can kind of move on from there. So let's go ahead, we'll get this out of the clamps, and we'll head over to the planer. Okay, we've got our basswood run through the planer. I took it down to about 1/2 an inch. I think that'll work for now until we get the top half of this glued down. Then, like I said, then tomorrow I'm going to run it over to the joiner, and I'm going to join it and take it down even further, somewhere maybe about 1/8 of an inch or stronger. And then what I want to do now, though, is just take the top half of this, and I just want to trace out the outline of the top of this horse. We'll take it over to the bandsaw where we'll rough cut it. I don't need to be exact. In fact, I want to be a bit proud of the line so that when we glue this down permanently, when the horse is pretty well ready to go, we can glue the top half of this down, and then we can carve and blend this right in. There's not going to be much. Like I said, probably about 1/8 of an inch or so. So it really won't be enough to make any sort of a difference with the overall. Good. Now let me run over to the bandsaw. I'll get this cut out, and I'll be right back. All right, let's Let's take a look at this. So when I flip this horse over, it's interesting. You can just see how much wood is left here where the saddle block was cut in. I think that shows up here on the camera. There's just a little bit left. I'm surprised that I haven't broken it yet. But even if it would have, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But I was trying to really keep from having that snap off. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll get this, get some glue spread down here on our basswood. We'll get the top put on, get it kind of clamped down tight, and we'll leave it sit till tomorrow. You probably saw where I marked the locations of the pommel holes. I guess it wouldn't matter if I got a little glue there anyways. We're going to drill them out, but I was just going to try to avoid some of that. I don't know, maybe we'll go ahead and we'll glue everything. All right, let's grab some wood clamps. We'll get this clamped down and we'll let it set overnight to dry. I think what I'll do, it's going to be way too hard, of course, to put a clamp on the neck here. So let's just go ahead and take a screw with a large fender washer, and I'm just going to put that up underneath here to pull this front part in, where it's going to be hard to clamp. And we'll take that off. Well, that looks good. You probably saw I added a few more screws with fender washers in a couple of areas where it was just really tough to clamp to get this pulled down tight. And it looks like I've got a lot of good glue ooze everywhere all the way around. So that's fantastic. So let's just go ahead and we'll let this sit right here tonight, and tomorrow we'll come in and we'll take the clamps off, and then we'll head over to the joiner, and then then we'll get into the body and we'll see what we're going to do there. I'm not real sure yet, so we'll figure that out tomorrow. But the rest of the day now, like I said, we've got a beautiful day. I'm going to get set up outside, and I want to get this large horse roughed in and take advantage of this nice weather. So I'll meet you outside. Well, I was able to take a bit of a break and take advantage of the nice weather we're having here in Pennsylvania and get this big guy roughed in. Now, I want to pretty much stick with restoration and this little lines, and that's what this series is about. But like I said, I just couldn't waste a day like that, and I really wanted to get this big guy roughed in. So let me get him taken off the bench here. We'll set him over, and then I'm going to bring you over here to the bench. We have our the top half of our horse. We went ahead and we've got that clamped up, so we're going to take the clamps off of this. But right now, my dilemma is, and the problem is we're going to focus on the body. Let me bring you over here to the bench, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So focusing on the body of this horse, we have these two missing blocks here in the middle, body blocks, and that over the years of not being connected, it has actually cracked and split the bottom part of our horse, this bottom body block. And so when we push on it, you can see the stress that's on there. So, what do we do in this case? So I've been thinking about this, and like I said, it's nice when I have a horse here in the shop where I can kind of think about things, and I've been thinking about this. My initial thinking was I was just going to go ahead and break this and just go ahead and just break it right through and separate it, and I may still do that. We're going to try a couple of things here before we go that route. The only reason I'm thinking that, it's when you've got a crack this bad, we've got dirt in here, we've got all of that, and it would be nice just to go ahead. It'd probably make a clean break. We might be able to break it, glue it back together, clean all that up, get some glue in there, and then clamp it nice and tight, and that would repair that. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is get these legs taken off, and the only problem with that I see is they're attached pretty well, and I think if I go messing around and trying to remove those legs, I may do more damage than good. So I'm not sure I want to go that route. So, we're just going to have to look at this, study it here a little bit. I think what I'll do is take my rubber mallet and just tap on these lightly, see if these legs loosen up. Now, the other problem I believe that's going on here is these legs, they do put a nail or two from the factory when they were building these. They would, the mortise and tenon would go in, that leg would go in, and then they'd put a nail in there probably to let the glue set up. And so I'm sure there's going to be a nail here somewhere that gesso's covering it up. But we'll go ahead and we'll try just tapping it with a rubber mallet, these two legs, and just see if maybe they'll loosen up a little bit. If not, like I said, I may go ahead and just pull this apart. The reason too, I almost forgot to mention, the reason too I'd like to get this separated is when you look down here, and it's going to be hard. I'll see if I can get the camera in a little bit. So I'm not sure if you can see that or not. But when you look in here, this is pretty rough. If I had this separated, then I can go ahead, take this over to the joiner and join this possibly, or even sand it and just try to get it a little bit smoother so we can get a really good glue joint. So that's kind of my dilemma. So let's go ahead, I'll get the clamps off this, we'll set this aside because now that's pretty well solid. We're not going to break it. And then we'll take a rubber mallet and let's just tap on those legs and see what happens. We'll get these fender washers out of here too. Okay, let's set this aside and let's bring our body over here. Okay, let's see what happens here. And that one's pretty tight. This one's loose, so I think I can, with a little bit of work here, I think I can get this one taken out. And I think I see where the nail is. Let's just see. Nope, there's no nail. So that's good. Good, that wasn't too bad. And you can see here too, they put shims in to, take up some of the gap. And I think we can repair all of that as well. But let's just see. Boy, it'd be nice if I can get this other leg out. Let's see, is there a nail on that side? No nail. It's loosening up. Here it comes. Awesome. There we go. Good. And then I'll bring you in here. You can see where it's just split all the way through. So you see that? So let's go ahead and let's just put a little bit of pressure on it and just see what happens. Like I said, I don't think it's going to take much. Let's try this. Maybe what I can do here is this crack right here is all the way, comes all the way to about here to this leg. Could we go ahead and put a chisel and just see if we can crack it, continue that break on through. There we go. Good. I'm sure some of my friends over in the UK are probably just freaking out right now, but it'll be okay. And I just really feel better about separating this body. Nice. Now that we have our two halves here, we were able to get that taken apart. We can really focus on getting our middle body blocks here. We'll get these two halves, these two centers here, planed down. I don't know if you can see how bad this one is, but this one is really warped, and there's just no way you're going to get a good glue joint there. And I want to make sure that when this goes back together, it's going to go back together 100% solid. The other thing we can do now is we have another crack here, and I'll see if my camera here can pick this up. Since we broke it along this line, we have this crack to deal with. That's easy enough to fix. I've got a syringe. We can put some glue in here, and then we can go ahead and get this clamped and let that sit overnight, and that'll make that 100% strong. So next up is we need to get these two halves here, our two middle body blocks, trued up, and then we can go ahead and get a couple of blocks cut and get those clamped on, and then we can start putting this little horse back together. So I've been standing here for a few minutes now, just kind of looking things over, studying both of these halves, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to get these middle body blocks flat and true, so we can go ahead and get the rest of it, get a piece milled up and get it glued in here. And I think this one, that's the worst one that has a huge wave in it. I think I can get that over the joiner. I may nip this part of the bottom body block a little bit, but we can deal with that later. But this is definitely the worst one, and I think we can get that trued up over at the joiner. The other side, they're not too bad, and I'm just wondering if I can take a belt sander and just see if we can't get those flat by using the belt sander. I have a hand plane. I don't think I can get in there tight enough against the bottom body block to use the hand plane. And we'll look at that, but I may just try the belt sander first and just kind of lightly hit this and see if we can't get it flat, and then use our straight edges and just see if we can't get it, you know, relatively in the ballpark. I know I would like to have it perfect so we can get a really good glue joint, but I don't think that's going to be an option. And I think that's going to be the best course of action right now. Again, this is just all trial and error, and we'll just have to kind of play with it and see what works. I did try to go in here with a chisel on this bottom body block on this side just to see if this bottom body block might pop off. You know, some of these old glues, they're obviously not as good as what we have today. And when you're dealing with something like this, it's probably, you know, 75, 80 years old, somewhere around there. Sometimes this glue will start to fail, and sometimes you can get in there even with a putty knife and pop that, and sometimes it lets go. But this one is staying on pretty good, so we don't want to disturb that too much. One other area here is, it looks like I have a pretty good sized nail right here that I'm going to have to deal with and see if I can hammer out and get in here and pry that out before we glue that all together. But I'm going to go over to the joiner first, and I'm going to see if we can't just see if we can get this side trued up, and then we'll get the belt sander and just see what we can do from there. All right, let's see here what we can do. I think we'll set our height to take off maybe a 1/16 of an inch, somewhere around there. And by pressing down with my right hand, I can get this, and I can get a good feel for it where I'm, you know, not going to be crooked or anything, but I think we can just slowly make a couple of passes here and see how that does. So let's give it a shot. I think that'll do it. That looks pretty good. I have a little bit of a rough edge here. I didn't want to take it down anymore. I was just touching the bottom body block right here, and we can deal with that. It's not much at all. And I think this will be enough that we can get some glue in there, but we've got the majority of it nice and flat and true, so that's going to make a really strong glue joint. Now we need to work on the other 3 surfaces here, so let's see if we can work those down and get them flat. My old trusty belt sander. See if we can get this clamped down. That side looks pretty good. Let's do this side. That looks really good. That's actually better than I thought it was going to come out. One more. That's the fun about doing, restoration work when you get into something like this. It's just a bunch of, trying to figure out what works best, in some cases, and I just love that. It's the challenge of doing something, and every horse, everything you do in restoration is different. So it's always, you're always trying something new just a little bit right here and we've got it. Well, I don't think we're going to get it any closer than that, and that really wasn't too bad. It only took a couple of minutes to get all three of these sides planed down and get them surfaced. Next up, I want to go ahead and put these two halves together, and we'll get them clamped, and then I can measure the distance in between, see what kind of block we're going to need, and we'll get that milled up and get that put in place. It looks as though we're going to need a 3/4 inch piece here in the front and about a 1 inch piece here on the back. And then we'll go ahead and get those milled up and we'll get those put in place. I'm only going to glue one side at first because I can really get a good clamp on it. And then once that's set up and dried, then we can put the other half on and then we can get in here and really glue, you know, the crack and everything on the other side. We'll get this really clamped up good and tight, and believe me, once this is done, it won't come apart. All right, after a little bit of monkeying around, I've got a couple of blocks made up here out of poplar. One's 1 inch and this one is 3/4. This 3/4 one's gonna go in the front here. So I've got those ready to go. So all we need to do now is put some glue on, clamp them down, and we'll get back in here tomorrow and we'll get this all glued up nice and tight. That's all done. We've got our end pieces all clamped on. I went ahead and wiped off all the excess glue as best I can, but especially in here where we're going to be clamping tomorrow. And everything looks good. I've got nice glue ooze all the way around on both pieces. I ended up putting another clamp here just to kind of bring it together, this direction as well as, bring it down that way. And, it's really, it looks great. So tomorrow we'll go ahead, get in here to the shop, take the clamps off, and then we can go ahead and work on getting the other half of the body block and get it clamped down and get it nice and tight. And the goal is, of course, once we're done and you take the clamps off, you won't even know that we were in here and we did all of this. So that's tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Well, good morning. Welcome back here to the shop. Let's go ahead and first thing, let's get the clamps taken off this half that we worked on yesterday. And last night before I left for the day, I went ahead and got a clamp. I cleaned up this other crack that we had on the other half of the body block and blew it out, got all the dust out, put some glue in there and clamped it up nice and tight so we can get the clamps taken off there. I wanted to get that done so that we can go ahead and continue moving on and get this body back together. So let's get the clamps off and then we'll start working on getting both of these halves put together.
Two hours later.
Well, what's the old saying? The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Well, that pretty much sums up what's going on right now today with this little lines horse I've been working on. The other day when we were in here and I was working, and it sounded like a good idea to go ahead and get these surfaces planed and go ahead and get the centerpieces glued in. Now, looking back on it, I wish I would not have done that. And the reason is I kind of thought today we just come right in here and just start, putting that other section on or that other half on and just glue it right down and, we'll just continue right on. Well, that absolutely did not go as planned. And even though I measured in between and I thought everything looked good, but that's what happens when you get into a restoration project. And again, I love it. I just absolutely love it because, if it was easy, anybody could do it. But what's going on here is I went ahead and I started to glue this down. Well, we're about just a little bit too big. And then it kind of messed me up because both of these are on different heights. So to just go in and run this over the joiner again, you can't do that. So I was kind of stuck. So literally I've been here for a few hours now messing around. And what I've been able to do, I was able to run a couple of pieces over the joiner, a couple of things here and get them run down. I kind of ran it against the grain. I sort of ran it this way just to get this piece down. So I've got it now to a point where we can go ahead and get this put together, and that leaves about a quarter of an inch, a solid quarter of an inch, that then I think once we glue these halves up, and I'll see if my overhead camera can pick that up, but we're probably about a quarter of an inch, maybe a half an inch or 5/8 on this side too. So that's plenty. So now what I'm thinking is I'm going to go ahead and get this side glued on, and let's go ahead and get this put back together tight. And then I think let's cut a piece or 2 pieces to go back in here, and we'll just take our time and fit that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But like I said, that's restoration, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that is where I'm at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get some clamps. We'll get some glue on this and get this put back together, get it pulled tight. And you can see here this joint here, that this crack, I was able to go ahead and get that one glued up, and it looks really good. So I'm hoping that this one now, once we get it clamped and glued, it'll look just as good. And the other, I was able to go in here and take that nail out. It was on this side here. So it was just a little piece of a nail. So I was able to just pop that and pull it out. So that was easy. But those of you that have done restoration work, you know, you kind of have it in your head that it's going to possibly go this direction or this way. And of course it doesn't. And I just had to kind of sit back and, you know, just think. And once in a while things go the way you plan them. But that's, you know, very few and far in between that it actually does go that way. But I guess I was hoping. Okay, we got some glue on that, so let's go ahead. Get this clamped. Good, that looks really good. It's nice and smooth down the crack here, so I've got it pretty well lined up, and I think that's going to glue back together really, really nice. Let's just see if I can lightly flip this around, and we've got glue in here. I think I'm going to put a clamp this direction as well, just to pull anything that, you know, it may not be as tight there. I can see a little bit of glue when I put just a little bit of pressure on there. Good, I think that'll work. You can see now too, I've measured the bottom or the top half of our horse, our upper body block, and we're right around 7.5 here on the back side. So we're out about a solid 8 inches. So we've got a 1/2 inch that we've got to pull this in. And so you can see that the horse is, or the body is kind of, you know, splayed out a little bit. Well, that is looking a lot better, let's just say. And I think the best thing to do right now is I'm just gonna set this aside to dry, and because I really want to give this glue ample time, I'm gonna give it probably 24 hours, if not longer, to dry, because when we get back in here and we take the clamps off and we start cutting these pieces and fitting this in, we're gonna be clamping on this horse to pull everything in, and I want to give that crack plenty of time to really set up and cure. It was a clean break. It went back together beautifully, so I'm not anticipating, fingers crossed, anything to, you know, come apart, but there's always that chance. So that's where I'm going to leave things for this episode. Like I said, next week we'll get in here and we'll start fitting these pieces in, and we'll we'll just continue working on this horse, getting this little guy put back together. So I appreciate you all tuning in and following along. And as always, happy carving, and we'll see you here at the shop next week. Take care.